Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Aussie Footy, covering everything from the AFL to the AFLW. My name is Ashley, and today we will be covering everything that happened within the round 9 of the Toyota AFL Premiership season. We'll be looking at the state game of the Waffle versus the Sandful at Optus Stadium. Turned out as a cracking game, not many people, but we'll get into that one a bit later on. And we also have a look ahead to the round 10 fixtures beginning on Friday night with Carlton and Sydney, but that will all be towards the end. If you haven't already, guys, please go and subscribe down below. Press the thumbs up, put the bell notification on, make sure you get notified every time we upload. Also, go follow us on Facebook at All Things Aussie Footy. That will give us a huge favour. Also, let me know what you guys like, what you guys don't like about these videos. Give me some feedback that I can work off for you guys. Make sure I'm giving you guys the content that you love to see. So, we're going to get stuck into it, starting off with, of course, the most important game, the state game, the Waffle versus the Sandful, played at Optus Stadium. Not big of a turnout in crowd numbers, especially as a curtain raiser. To the West Coast Melbourne game, would like to see a few more people get there, need to advertise a bit more. Unfortunately, the Waffle team did go down on their home turf at Optus Stadium to the Sandful 9-12-66 to 10-10-70. Great performance all round by the Sandful. Big props to them. Got some great young developing players that are looking at pushing to the AFL system. They've got players that are just all round brilliant that we need to be keeping an eye on for years to come, especially if they go on and play in the AFL. Again, great all-round game by the Sandful. Congratulations to them on picking up the win against the Waffle and retaining that championship for that state game, the annual state game that gets played every year. So, big congratulations to them. But turning our attention now onto the AFL. The AFL kicked off on Friday night for round 9. The first game was between the Collingwood Magpies and the Western Bulldogs. Ultimately, the Bulldogs came away with a massive, much-needed win, running away quite comfortably with a 14-15-99 to a 7-9-51 win. Strong all-round dominance by the Bulldogs, going on, kicking flurries of goals, and eventually kind of just coming out of the blocks and going, see you later, we're going to take the 4 points, we're going to climb the ladder, we're going to show why we're in the grand final last year, why we're going to try and make that top 8 again this year and progress through to another potential grand final. Unfortunately, I don't have them making a grand final, but we'll see where they're at with that. Saturday morning kicked off with Hawthorn Richmond. Everyone was dubbing this the biggest game of the week. Hawthorn and Richmond, two powerhouse clubs. Richmond ultimately coming away with a 17-15, 117 to a 14-10, 94 win. Great game between both teams. I'll give them credit where credit's due. Richmond just outplayed Hawthorn. Obviously still young Hawthorn side, still got a lot to kind of work out what they're doing, where they're going. They had a great start of the year. Just now into this quarter of the year, it's really starting to slow them down. I would like to kind of get them to revisit back to the first 3 or 4 rounds when they had quite a few wins, especially against big clubs, and kind of look back there and work out, okay, well, what have we changed from here to now? Obviously, injuries don't help, but they kept in touch with Richmond the whole game. Richmond ultimately just kicked away in that last quarter. So, big props to Richmond for holding off a fast, powerful Hawthorn team. Obviously young and still developing Hawthorn, but big props to them about how far they're coming. Port Adelaide and North Melbourne were next up. Obviously North Melbourne home game, so I should have said them first, but well. Port Adelaide running away with a 17-13, 115 to the North Melbourne 6-10-47 win for the Power. Massive win to get their season back on track. They're now climbing their way up the ladder, which ultimately we will see after this. But Port Adelaide, from where they were sitting 0-5 a few weeks back, to now slowly climbing their way up the ladder, it's great to see. They're coming in fast for a finals berth here. St Kilda Geelong, ultimately, I think we can all agree that I think most of us did kind of look at this game and go, youngsters versus veterans. A lot of people would have tipped the veteran side to beat the youngsters, especially with the likes of Richmond and Hawthorn. But ultimately St Kilda, they shocked me personally because I actually backed Geelong in this game. But St Kilda ultimately beat Geelong, surprisingly. St Kilda running away with a 13-12 90 to a 11-14 80. So 10-point win Saints over Geelong. Brilliant all-round game by St Kilda. I unfortunately did miss the game as I had my own footy game to play in, but watching back with the highlights, watching how they played, it was just brilliant all-round performance by St Kilda. Completely shocked me and goes to show their potential moving on into the season. Geelong being a team to beat, that was great. Next week they do come up against Adelaide. Might be an interesting game, but it's probably not one of those big tests like the likes of Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, Fremantle, Geelong obviously in round 9, or kind of the big clubs that are now pushing into the finals, knowing we're getting later and later in the season. So props to Saints for coming out with that win. Sydney and Essendon. The Sydney really inaccurate in front of goal, kicking 21 behinds, but they did manage to get the W. 14-21 105 to Essendon 6-11 47. So Sydney did kind of start out the blocks quite slow. 21 behinds for a game is pretty dismal, especially for a strong team. But holding on, get the win over well, not really holding on, they absolutely dominated them. But to get the win 105-47, big confidence booster, big percentage booster in terms of the ladder and where they're sitting. Essendon kind of need to look at where they're going. People coming out saying Essendon for premiers, Essendon this, Essendon that at the start of the year. Scratch them out already. I've put a line straight through them. They're not playing finals this year. Their streak will continue. Adelaide and Brisbane. Big game here being played at the Adelaide Oval. Brisbane needing a win to kind of stay in touch with Melbourne at the top. And they did end up with that win. Brizzy running away with a 16-6 102 to a 9-12 66 win. So an all-round great performance by the Lions, showing as to why they're still up there, why they're in touch with Melbourne and Fremantle, sitting between Melbourne and Fremantle on top, but running second at the moment. But give them a couple of weeks, I reckon, they'd be looking at top spot. They do come up against Melbourne in round 12, I'm pretty sure it is. So give them props. They're playing exceptional football. They are showing why they are contenders for a premiership, and then potentially not this year, maybe next year, if they keep their squad together. Sunday kicked off with Gold Coast and Fremantle. A lot of people were backing Fremantle for this. I backed Fremantle, but unfortunately that was another big shock for me. Gold Coast running away with a big win over Fremantle at Metricon Stadium, winning at 10-9 69 to Fremantle's 4-9 33. Fremantle 33 points for Freo, sitting top 4. It's not going to cut it for them. So they kind of need to go back into their book, work out where they went wrong, and re-evaluate from there. Hopefully something clicks and they can work it out quickly so they can get back into the way they were playing at the start of the season, which would be good to see. The Giants and Carlton was another big matchup, especially on the Sunday. The Giants playing host to them, that was a very minimal crowd again, unfortunately. But the Giants did unfortunately lose at home to the Blues, who are showing their dominance this year. I think they're shocking everyone by staying within the 8. They might be a push for maybe mid-September action. I can't see them going through to a grand final. They may bail out at a semi-final or prelim, wherever they finish on the ladder. But let's wait and see. The Giants ultimately losing 11-9-75 to Carlton's 15-15, 105. Great performance by Carlton. Again, wait until the big tests of teams that are kind of sitting above them. Saints, Fremantle, Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, those sort of teams. Wait for those games. Kind of see where they're sitting then, especially with the bye. Once all the teams have had their byes, which is coming up very soon, we do start to see the ladder kind of settle and get a rough idea of where everyone's going to be looking at finishing the season. The game to round out round 9 of the season ultimately is West Coast and Melbourne. Need I say more? It's not 2018, West Coast fans. You got no hope in winning premiership this year. You got no hope in playing finals. You're basically already given the wooden spoon, maybe even 17th. Either way, you guys are getting a priority draft pick, whether it be 1, 2 or 3, or first, second or third pick. But you guys aren't making finals, so go back, watch the 2018 grand final if you wanted to. Melbourne came out and absolutely obliterated you guys at 16-16, 112 to 5-8-38 in front of the West Coast faithful. That was the game after the Waffle and Sandful game at Optus Stadium. West Coast really need to start clicking. I reckon their coach is hanging on to a lifeline. He may lose his job. I reckon he went to see where they're at. Hopefully we see them with another win soon, because a lot of fans are dying for a win. They're releasing flexi memberships now for 3 or 5 games for the Eagles, whatever you guys want to do. So make sure you go and look at that. If you're an Eagles supporter watching these videos, westcoasteagles.com.au, they've got flexi memberships going at the moment as well, kind of dragging fans. So go and get yourself one of those and go and watch the Eagles play. They're not winning many games, but get behind your WA team. Go and show them. Obviously you've got Fremantle, but they don't need any fans. Leave them off the side there. They're sitting up here, the Eagles down here. Go and copy yourself a flexi membership and go and support a home-based team. Even if you're a Freo supporter, go and support the Eagles. Show them, yes, we have the derbies, but we are behind you guys. You can rebuild from this. But like I said, Melbourne smashing West Coast 112-38. It's no difference there from what they've been dealing with the past couple of rounds. Let's just really hope West Coast can click on. So as we go on and look into the ladder for the round, we've obviously settled on a kind of top 4 here. Top 3 I should say, with Melbourne, Brisbane and Fremantle all running top 3. All of them still in the fight for the minor premiership. I do understand Freo's had 2 losses, Brisbane's with the 1. Melbourne ultimately undefeated still, but anything can happen. Melbourne may go on and lose, a couple of games. They may go on and win every game, we don't know. We're only at round 9 of 23, so anything's possible. Don't count it out just yet. Brisbane and Fremantle are still in with a chance of finishing on top of the ladder. Carlton, Sydney, St Kilda, Geelong and Richmond round out your 8. They are, after 9 rounds, looking at the teams to play finals. Ultimately, I reckon you can already book Melbourne, Brisbane, Fremantle in for the finals. The other teams are kind of seesawing in and out of the 8, or thereabouts anyway. Some are staying, 5, 6, 7. Some are jumping between 7, 8 and 9. But give them a couple of weeks and we might be able to see the ladder start slowing down, settling down, to give us a chance, or to give other teams a chance. Kind of look at where they're sitting, especially after the bye rounds. The Bulldogs, Port Adelaide and Collingwood, Gold Coast are sitting 9 to 12. They're all still in the hunt for a final spot. One's pushing it would be the Hawthorn, Adelaide are kind of trying to knock on that door. They need to get a couple of wins. Hawthorn ultimately are slowing down in the season. They were sitting in the 8 for a bit, especially at the start of the season. Now that they've lost a few games, they are dropping down. I think they won their first 3 games, so they're really on a 5-game losing streak, unfortunately. But hopefully we see them back up there soon. Adelaide, GWS, Essendon. Ultimately, I don't really see those 3 teams pushing for finals anytime soon, in terms of this year anyway. They've had their chance, they've blown it. If they make finals, well, props to them. If they don't, well, better luck next year. And I've already put a line through these two teams down at the bottom here, being North Melbourne and West Coast. 1-8 to start the season is just, it's not them. Put a line through them, they aren't making finals. They will get either the first or second pick, maybe even the third if lucky, but season's done for them, it's done and dusted. You might as well start planning for next year, give themselves some time. Yes, the mid-season draft is coming up, but give some time to rebuild around your key players. In terms of West Coast, you got the likes of Tim Kelly, Nick Natanui, Luke Shuey as well in there. You've got some players that are still playing waffle, you've got some players that are injured. I do understand that, it doesn't help. Just start to rebuild now, come back next year and try again, unfortunately. And then the same deal with North Melbourne as well. Obviously losing their key defender in Aaron Hall earlier in the season doesn't help at all. So hopefully we see those two teams somewhat get a couple of wins on the board in the season, but scratching them out. Can't see them playing finals, unfortunately. News that is circulating around the AFL as well. The AFL has actually announced the 2022 Toyota AFL Grand Final time slot and the venue. So it's gone back to the MCG for the first time in, I think it's 2 years. 2020 was at the Gabba, 2021 was at Optus Stadium. We're back at the Gabba, we're back at the G, sorry I should say, not the Gabba. We're back at the G, traditional 2:30 time slot, Melbourne time. Can't wait, great atmosphere, let's all get around that. There has been a little bit of shock news just coming through at the last moments. Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti has ultimately announced his retirement from AFL football effective immediately. So the Dreamtime at the G game, they will, I don't know if they've got anything planned for him, I don't know what's going on. I don't think he is playing in the Dreamtime game, but hopefully he will be there for that one. That is obviously next week, but McDonald-Tipungwuti, thank you for what you've done for Australian rules football, absolute legend, and hopefully, someone can live on with your legacy. Your kids, your nephews, your cousins, whoever it may be. Hopefully, we can see that Tipungwuti name back in the AFL in the very near future. But all the very best. The other lot of news coming through as well is West Coast are still continuing to struggle with team selection. With a key forward and a midfielder in Oscar Allen and Luke Edwards both being put onto the inactive list due to injuries. So their season unfortunately is done. It opens up 2 spots in the mid-season draft for the Eagles, which is happening in a couple of weeks. Hopefully they use those picks wisely for that. Find players like Oscar Allen and Luke Edwards, but we will wait and see in terms of that. Hopefully something gets sorted with those. But throw straight into round 10. Round 10 fixturing is you're opening a round at Marvel Stadium with Carlton and Sydney. Big blockbuster game, 2 great teams. Carlton and Sydney both playing exceptional football lately. Sydney coming off a 105-47 win against Essendon, while Carlton are coming off a win as well against the Giants, 105-75, so both teams evenly matched going into that game. Ultimately, my tip, I guess I'm going to have to go with Sydney on that one. Saturday, Super Saturday, obviously ending with the Dreamtime at the G, but first game up is at Mars Stadium in Ballarat, so a country game in the AFL. It's not often you get to see an AFL game go out to the countryside, but it gives back to the community. It's great to see that happening. You get your Bulldogs and you get the Suns. Bulldogs playing really great football. The Suns coming off a massive win against Fremantle. It is hard to pick that game between those sides. Ultimately, I'll probably have to go with the Bulldogs. They've just been playing well. They've bounced back a lot. But like I said, it's a tough game. But Bulldogs for me. GMHBA Stadium is the next game for the Super Saturday football. Geelong Cats and Port Adelaide Football Club. Both teams kind of up and down this year. Geelong have had a better run. Port have bounced back a lot since starting the season, sort of bottom of the ladder. Ultimately, I'm going to go with Port on this. Take the 4 points away from home. Geelong coming off a shock loss to the Saints. So it'll be interesting to see Port Adelaide coming off a win against North Melbourne, although North Melbourne are easy at the moment. Speaking of North Melbourne, that is the next game. Again, this game will be played at Marvel Stadium, so 2 games at Marvel across 2 days. You've got your Friday with Carlton and Sydney, and then you've got your Saturday with the Melbourne derby between North Melbourne and Melbourne. Ultimately, obviously, Melbourne by 40 plus this game, so you can't really say much about that. Melbourne is going to prove too strong for them, especially with their lineup. You know, you've got Petrarca, Gawn, Oliver in the midfield. You've got Stephen Mann at the back. Tom McDonald in there as well. You've got a strong team lineup for Melbourne. Adelaide Oval. This game has been played at the same time as the Dreamtime game, so if you want to watch the Dreamtime game, watch the Dreamtime game. If you want to watch Adelaide and the Saints, then watch the Adelaide and the Saints. Or if you've got KO, you can split them on both screens. Richmond and Essendon will be played at the same time as Adelaide and the Saints. But first of all, Adelaide and the Saints. Adelaide Oval, great ground, great venue. Massive game for both teams. Saints don't really need to prove anything in this game compared to what they've had to prove in the last few weeks. So this game they might be able to kind of sit back, relax a little bit. Don't relax too much. All games are tough games. Doesn't matter who you're playing against. Be someone that's 0-15 and you could be 15-0 and he still could be beaten. So don't take any games lightly, but I'll play Saints to beat the Crows. The Dreamtime game at the G, which is Richmond Essendon, one of the best games. Love the pre-game ritual with this, with the Indigenous dances, the playing of the didgeridoo, the anthem. It brings chills to your spine. All round great game, can't wait for it. Might be a cracking game. Ultimately, Richmond are going to come out with this win. They don't have Marlon Pickett, unfortunately. They don't have Matty Parker playing. They don't have Shai Bolton. So let's just hope, you know, you've got big players standing up in there. You've got Nankervis, Revolt, Lynch, Martin. Let's hope we have a few of the big players stand up and put Richmond across the line. Sunday, we start with the GWS Giants and West Coast being played at Giants Stadium. GWS having a back-to-back home game. They did play Carlton and lose, but also West Coast did get their ass kicked by Melbourne. I'm leaning towards GWS with this one, GWS definitely are playing strong, uptight football. Can't wait to see what it brings to them. Hawks and Brisbane at the University of Tasmania Stadium. Hawthorn home game in Tassie. I think contracted with the Tassie government. Hawthorn are required to play 2 or 3 games in Tassie. Same deal with North Melbourne. They are trying to push for a Tasmania team to come into the competition, but at the moment Hawthorn and North Melbourne do share UTAS Stadium. So Hawthorn and Brisbane, big game for the Hawks if they kind of want to stamp their authority on the competition. They're going to have to play again. Well, they've got no choice but to play against a team that's sitting top 4, who are looking strong this year in Brisbane. But ultimately Brisbane are going to come down to this game and run riot over them. It's Brisbane for me with that tip. And the last game we played is Fremantle Collingwood. It is meant to be wet in Perth on the Sunday. This obviously, well, as you can assume, Fremantle are playing at home to Collingwood. I reckon it's going to be a great game. I reckon it's going to be a cracking game. Like Scott Pendlebury, Jack Ginnivan, Mason Cox all here in Perth. They're going up against like David Mundy, Matt Taberner, Michael Walters, Michael Frederick, all of those big names playing. Be a close game. I'm ultimately going to go with Fremantle at home this week, but That'll be a cracking game, and I can't wait for it. So that is the round recap. That is the round preview for this week coming up. Can't wait to bring you guys the results in the next video. If you haven't already, please remember, subscribe down below, leave a like, put the bell notification on, leave a comment. Also go and follow us on Facebook at All Things Aussie Footy. Everything will be in the link in the description. If you haven't already, in the other videos, I have mentioned this new board game, Mad for Footy, which is brought to you by Rolla Games, so thanks heaps to them. Their link will be in the description down below, so go and purchase a game, follow them on their social medias. All links down below. I'll make sure I put it all in there. So other than that, guys, can't wait to bring you guys the results for round 10 and the look into round 11 fixtures next week, so stay tuned for that one. Make sure the notification bell's on so you do get notified for it. But other than that, guys, that's done. That's it for another episode. All done and dusted for round 9. Ladder's starting to take shape. Hopefully we see a bit more results come through and we can kind of see the ladder start to settle down going into the bye rounds in a couple of weeks' time. But other than that, guys, I wish you all well, and I'll see you in the next episode.